I liked to drink, but I knew I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't a problem drinker. I never had hangovers. It wasn't affecting my fitness results, I thought. And so whenever I would see or hear videos or YouTubes or podcasts about the dangers of alcohol or the problems with alcohol, I would skip out on those because I'm like, that's something that a person who drinks a lot, they need to pay attention to that. But someone like me who just does it socially, it's not a problem. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. And now in 2025, the Surgeon General has just released an urgent demand calling for a cancer risk warning on all alcohol, citing new studies that prove even small amounts of alcohol can cause cancer. We're seeing headlines like there is no safe level of alcohol to drink, not even 1 glass of red wine per day. New studies show that alcohol is the 3rd leading cause of cancer in the U.S. Doctors are sounding the alarms. Any woman who wants to avoid breast cancer should not drink. Alcohol consumption contributes to approximately 100,000 cancer cases annually. We now know that even 1 drink a day shrinks the brain, and it's why so many people are making the life-enhancing decision to give up alcohol. Every single year, I noticed more and more people were talking about going alcohol-free.
I don't drink alcohol anymore.
Very difficult?
No, beautiful, unbelievable.
Better.
Oh, are you kidding? I would never be sitting here with you.
I've been sober since pretty much the vocal surgery kind of did it for me.
I quit drinking back in October.
I gave up alcohol. I've never felt better, and I can see a difference in my eyes and my skin and my body, everything.
It's one of the most rewarding things and decisions I've ever made in my life.
And if I'm being honest, I would get little snippets of information and think to myself, well, maybe I should cut back. So this episode of The Chalene Show is specifically for anyone who's thinking to themselves, maybe I should cut back. I just don't know what that would look like. And honestly, I don't even know if I could do it. Spoiler alert, you can do it. It's much easier than you think, and you don't have to quit forever. By the way, in this episode, I am going to disclose something that is so embarrassing. I've only told one other person. I haven't even said it yet, and I'm already getting nervous about admitting this. But I'm going to do it because I know it's going to help somebody. Hey, my name is Chalene Johnson. Welcome to this edition of The Chalene Show. And today I want to talk about my own experience, what it's been like for me. And specifically, I want to talk to those of you who are thinking about doing maybe a sober challenge or just taking a break from alcohol. And I want to help you understand like what you can expect. And I want to reduce your fears, because I know for me personally, I had such a huge fear of missing alcohol. It wasn't like I was addicted to it. It wasn't like I thought I was going to go through withdrawals or that life would be, so boring. I just thought that if I took a break, a great party would come up or some incredible invitation to a dinner party would happen. And then I would be like, oh my gosh, how do I do that without drinking? What I didn't know how to do was, I guess, show up to places where I'd always showed up. And I was in the habit of having alcohol. I've done an episode explaining my personal history with alcohol. I started drinking, just to recap very quickly, I started drinking like when I was age 13. I lived in a very small town in Michigan. It's kind of like what we did. And at age 13, I was like, oh, this is fun and this feels good. And I continued that through my entire life. But it never was a problem. Like I never felt addicted to it. I never had a rock bottom. There was a period of time where I did experience hangovers and I drank a lot less. My husband and I both drank a lot less when we were raising our kids. In fact, I remember like judging other parents like, oh my gosh, they drink like every day at 5 o'clock. And I remember judging parents who, would show up at baseball games and football games and it was like noon and I'm like, they're already sloshed. And like, we would have these after sports parties, not all, but so many of the parents drinking and thinking like, oh, that's so bad. And so I think part of what kept us kind of in check was parenting. And also the fact that I always had pretty bad hangovers, even if I had like one margarita or one glass of wine, not really bad hangovers. But I noticed as I was getting older, my hangovers were getting worse. And so my husband and I switched to drinking not like low sugar, almost zero sugar imported wines and imported champagnes. And that was our way of like, okay, if we're going to indulge, let's at least drink something that's healthy. Now, I don't know about you, but I also started to notice that everybody was talking about going alcohol free in the last couple of years. YouTubers and podcasters and people who I follow on Instagram, like they would start talking about going alcohol free. One of my favorite guests who I've had on the show many times, Dr. Daniel Amen, every time I talk to him about the things that I could do to improve my brain health, he would bring up like, okay, you've got to quit alcohol, but he would also list off all the other things that I really like too, like coffee and the occasional THC and just things where I'm like, okay, but you got to live your life.
Alcohol is not your friend. You're in a bad relationship with alcohol, right? You're in love with something that didn't love you back.
Everything in moderation. And that's kind of been my approach to a lot of things. It's just like, okay, let's find a healthy balance. And so for Brett and I, we believed our healthy balance was drinking imported wines and champagnes that were much lower on the toxic level. And so whenever I would hear people talking about the increased risks of 7 to 8 different types of cancer by consuming even a small amount of alcohol, I was like, well, yeah, of course, if you're drinking garbage alcohol, but we are not, is what I thought. And so when I would hear people, again, all these people who I really admired online, and they would talk about doing a sober October or a dry January or just some type of an alcohol-free challenge, I thought, well, I'm not going to do that because something fun's going to come up and I'm going to want to go do that fun thing. And plus, I don't have a problem. That's something you need to do if you have a problem. But then I started inviting great guests onto my show, really smart women, really incredible women. And I also started noticing that the one thing they all kind of had in common is that they were once women who drank and now they don't drink at all. And so when I would dig a little deeper in a very kind of like nonchalant way, because I didn't want them to think like, why is she asking so many questions? I didn't want them to think that I was like that interested or that I didn't know the answers. But the honest truth was I kept looking for a reason why I should keep drinking, why I kept looking for the permission to keep drinking. Like this is okay for us to continue doing it. Anytime I would connect with like a health and fitness influencer who was continuing to drink, I was like, well, there's all the proof I needed. But I did notice, and this is very judgy, but I did notice those people, whether they're health influencers or not, who drank on a regular basis, look older, specifically in the eyes. I noticed it. I also noticed that a lot of the women who I started following online to inspire me, women who were health and fitness influencers, I started taking inventory and like trying to, like I would do like a deep dive on their social medias to figure out like, does this person drink? Like I would look for any post where they were like holding up a glass of champagne or they were, celebrating. So I could say like, oh, okay, see they drink. So therefore it's okay. But what I noticed is the women who I was really inspired by, most of them were non-drinkers. Women like Melissa Neal, Ellen Ector, Fiona Lambert, Joan McDonald, Alicia Erickson, Annie Murray. These are all incredible fitness influencers, most of whom are all over 50, and their bodies. And you're going to be like, what the heck? Like, and some of these women are over 60, over 70, approaching 80, and their bodies are like chef's kiss, muscled, gorgeous. They look young. Their bodies are responding by adding on muscle. And the more I would look at their content, the more I realized like, I'm doing everything they're doing, but I'm also drinking. So then I noticed a trend with celebrities and influencers that just like a massive amount of people suddenly were going alcohol free. People like Bradley Cooper, Blake Lively, Brad Pitt, Kelly Ripa, Drew Barrymore, Kyle Richards, Adele, Gwyneth Paltrow, Anne Hathaway, Dax Shepard, Russell Brand, Jessica Simpson, Kat Von D, Eminem, Rob Lowe, Kristen Davis, Keith Urban, Mary J. Blige, Demi Moore, Sia, Miley Cyrus, Bella Hadid, Jordan Peterson, Chrissy Teigen, and Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj is my idol. I mean, if Nicki Minaj can be such a hoot and so much fun, I'm like, I got to think about this. And then, of course, there's all the health influencers like Rich Roll and, of course, Andrew Huberman. By the way, before we go too far, can I ask a special favor of you? Can I ask that you subscribe to the channel? They say that subscribers don't matter anymore, but yes, they do. You really matter. And I read every single one of your comments, and it really does matter to me. And by the way, it's free. So do me a favor, do yourself a favor, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And while we're at it, if you can make sure you like this video and leave me a comment with your thoughts. All right, back to it. I think Andrew Huberman's podcast on alcohol and what alcohol does to your brain has probably helped more people to figure out that they should take a break from alcohol than any other video on YouTube. I know it had a profound impact on me personally. So probably like you, I'm watching this trend happening and thinking to myself, is this a trend or is this something that's like catching on? Is alcohol going to be the new cigarettes? Is not drinking going to be like not smoking in the near future? Remember, there was a time when you walked into a restaurant and everybody was smoking. When you sat down at a table, there was always an ashtray. Like your waitress would have to empty the ashtray at a time, if you're old enough to remember this. Like I worked as a server, I worked in bars, I worked as a hostess, and I remember like people would walk up to the hostess stand and you would ask smoking or non, which was pointless because the whole place was filled with smoke. Everybody smoked. Your grandparents smoked. People smoked in cars with the windows up. People smoked on airplanes. People smoked everywhere. It was very, very normal. It was in TV, on commercials, actresses and actors, like everyone smoked. Your doctor smoked. Everybody smoked. And then we started learning about the science. Then we started learning that smoking causes cancer. I think I don't even have to tell you where we're headed. I mean, there's going to come a day, I'm going to predict it right now. I don't know how soon it's going to come, but for sure within the next 10 years, possibly within the next 5, because I think everything moves so much faster now because of social media and because of AI and because we now have, you and I have access to science that in the times when we were all still thinking that smoking was fine, the only way you knew about a new scientific study was if it was published on the news, if it made a headline. But today, you can go to PubMed yourself and look up the research on how damaging alcohol is to your brain and every cell in your body, even the smallest amounts. Now, I didn't want to make this particular episode to go over all of the science, but I have made an episode in the past that I've heard from thousands and thousands of people who've told me that that video, which today has over, I think, 350,000 views, that video helped them to quit drinking. It helped many to just take a break. But I mean, I hear from thousands of people every single day that their break turned into a decision to permanently eliminate alcohol consumption from, and they just never want to do it again after they read the studies that I linked in that particular episode. So I will link it below because that episode, I really do break down the most important science that you need to be aware of, the newest science. For those of you who are like, I can't watch a 2-hour Huberman podcast on how alcohol affects our brains, I want the Cliff Notes. That episode will give you the Cliff Notes. But today, what I want to help you to understand is that if it's something you're considering, and I'm speaking specifically to those of you who you know you're not an alcoholic, you're pretty sure you're not an alcoholic, like you don't have withdrawals when you do take a day off. It's not something you're doing during the day to regulate yourself, but it's something you know you're doing too much and you know it's not good for you. I want to talk to that person because I feel like, for me anyways, I felt like there were no messages that were out there for me. I thought like it was just you were either an alcoholic or you don't have a problem. But the truth is, alcohol is a problem. The truth is, there's no benefits. Dude, there are no benefits to alcohol. There aren't. Any benefit you can tell me you experience, I can disprove it for you. And I know you don't believe that right now. I didn't either. So that's okay. And I also want you to know that your fear of missing out, like fear of missing out on fun times or certain experiences, the only way you're ever going to know if in fact those fears are real is if you face them. So even if you were just to face them for 7 days, then at least you would know. And that's what I set out to do. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, what am I so afraid of? I'm just going to take 7 days off. And in those first 7 days, I immersed myself in what they call quit lit, also known as literature that people have written or podcasts or YouTubes. It's just like anything that you can consume that helps you to abstain from alcohol. And so I want to invite you to something that I've created specifically to help people like myself. Now, this is not for you if you're like, I need a program, I need a sponsor, or I need to go into a treatment program. I want to encourage you, and I'm going to put some resources below this episode for you to reach out to, but I'm going to encourage you to reach out and get that help. Like the fact that you're listening to this episode, the fact that you're even considering it, you should be so proud of yourself. You really should. But I wanted to create something for people so they would understand, like, you need a plan. Even if you're going to do 30 days, I mean, anyone can, I guess, white knuckle it for 30 days. I couldn't. It had become too much of a habit. It wasn't that I was addicted to it, but I was definitely addicted to the habit the same way that I'm addicted to, just like always having a water bottle or always having, drinking something all the time is such a habit for me that, if you said, okay, and it's happened, like, okay, I've got to do a fast for a blood test or whatever, and you can't drink any water. Like, I feel like, oh my gosh, someone told me I can't do something, and I kind of freak out. So I just want you to know you need a plan. And I've created one for you. I'm going to put a link below in my show notes. It's called FOMA. And this is something that I've done with a paid group in the past. We're going to go 30 days. And here's what it includes for those of you who are interested. You are going to get an audio that you can binge the whole thing right now if you want. Or you can listen to like one audio a day or whenever you need to because you feel like you're about to drink again, or you can feel those cravings coming on because those cravings do come on, even if you're not addicted. Even if you feel like, I'm not a problem drinker, the cravings are still going to come. The triggers are still going to be there. You're still going to show up in certain places, and it's just a habit. The same way you're triggered when you wake up and you walk into your bathroom, you're triggered to like brush your teeth. There's so many things in our culture, in our society that have triggered us to make us believe and feel as though, okay, I need to have a drink right now. And you feel very like, what am I supposed to do with myself? I want to do this thing. I want to feel that buzz, or I need to be holding something in my hand, and a glass of water ain't going to cut it. So I've created this for you. And for this month, because I know a lot of you are doing a 30-day challenge, I want to make it super duper affordable for you. It's $5. And you can get it on Patreon. Here's my recommendation for you. Buy it from your desktop because it's cheaper that way. If you buy it from your phone, it's a couple of bucks more, I think, because Apple adds on their fees or whatever. But it's for Patreon. And if you've never been a member of Patreon, a lot of times they're running a special that like you get to try it for 7 days for free anyways. So I want to encourage you to do that. If you don't need my support, that's great. But you need somebody's support, even if you're going to do 30 days and you want to succeed at this. And I want you to succeed. I want you to succeed. And I'm not telling you that you need to quit forever. I don't think that I've quit forever. I'll never be a drinker again. I will tell you that. But there may come a day where I decide to have a glass of champagne. I'm just not there yet. Right now, I feel so good that I can't imagine coming up with a reason why I would want to drink and experience the way you feel the next day. I love how it makes me feel, like the pride that I have that I'm a non-drinker. Like how, what? How? I never thought that would happen. I thought those people were boring. I didn't want to hang out with people who didn't drink. I never pictured myself being this person. But I can tell you the benefits are insane. I just feel so much better, so much lighter, so much more clear, so much more. I mean, I told my husband the other day, because I was doing like back-to-back podcasts with doctors, and usually my brain is fried. I usually feel like so dumb. By the end of doing like my first interview, I can't put words together. My brain just like the synapses aren't connecting. And I did back-to-back interviews, and I told him, I go, were you checking me out? Like I was on fire. My brain was like on fire. He's like, I said, I haven't felt like that good in terms of being so on in I don't know when. And I think that's because of the alcohol. no longer being in my system. And that seems weird for me to say because I don't want to give you the impression that I was, drinking every day or drinking during the day or any of those things. But I was definitely a social drinker who was doing a lot of socializing. As my husband and I, like once our kids were out of we were empty nesters and we were traveling a lot and going out to a lot of dinners and hanging out with people who also like to drink. We were just becoming far more social. So we were doing a lot more social drinking. I've got news for you. I watched a video from Mark Munson. He's the author of the book, The Art of Not Giving a F, right? And I watched a YouTube video of him talking about his journey through sobriety. And kind of like myself, he decided to take like a month off and it turned into a year and then 2 years. And I can't remember how many years now he's been sober, but his video, and I'll link to his YouTube video below too. But the one thing that really kind of bothered me when I watched kind of an update video, like after a year, is he said, the truth is my wife and I, we're kind of boring. We don't go out anymore. Yeah, it's nice though. I like it. And maybe that's going to be true for you, but it hasn't been true for myself and my husband. We still, at first it was weird. And I explained that whole process and how we got to the place where we are today. If you go through my FOMA series, by the way, it's all on audio, so you'll just be able to like plug it in and listen to it. And you're going to need to hear these kinds of stories. The Quit Lit, it's going to help you. Whether you just find a series on YouTube or you get on TikTok, get on Sober Talk as they call it. But like listening to other people's stories and other people's first 30 days is going to be so helpful. Like I can't even tell you what a difference it made for me. But again, I watched this Mark Munson video and he talked about how he and his wife, like their lives are like kind of boring now. I was like, that doesn't sound good. But that's his experience. It's not my experience. We still have so much fun. We love going out to fancy restaurants. And get this, we actually sit up at the bar. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's easier to order a mocktail directly with the bartender. I find that sometimes the wait staff is kind of like, a what? You know what I mean? And then they're kind of bummed out because your bill's going to be a little bit lower. So should I tell you about the thing that I said I was going to tell you about that's really embarrassing? Okay, I will. Enjoying my mocktail. I've got a lot of really great mocktail recipes, by the way. Pinky promised me right now you're not going to judge me. Okay, you can judge me. It's fine. I'm judging myself. We recently estimated how much money we were spending on alcohol. Now, as I mentioned, we had become connoisseurs of imported champagnes, specifically a type of champagne, a brand of champagne known as Renard. Renard is anywhere from $125 to $180 a bottle. And for some reason, in my mind, I believed the more expensive the champagne, it had to have quality ingredients. It practically was a health elixir. That's how my brain worked. We estimated that we were consuming 10 bottles. Now remember, a bottle has like 4 glasses, right? Between the two of us. My husband's like 6 foot and 200 pounds. And between the two of us, we were consuming on average 10 bottles a week. Now, when you go to a restaurant, a bottle of Renard could be upwards of $200. And we're also the types that when we invite other people out to dinner, whether it's like 2 people or 10 people or 12 people, like, I don't know what it is. We just always pick up the bill. With very rare exceptions, we're always like, we'll pick up the bill. So not only were we paying for our champagne, but like champagne for everybody at the table or whatever it was they were drinking. We've estimated that we were spending between $60,000 and $80,000 a year on alcohol. That is the dumbest thing that's ever come out of my mouth. I don't even know what to say. Because I know you're like freaking out right now. I know. We can afford it. But really, we couldn't afford to do that. Like, we're spending that kind of money to damage our brains, to damage our cellular systems, to put ourselves at a higher risk of alcohol to minimize our gains in the gym. Like I think about all the detrimental impact that alcohol has, even the smallest consumption. Now I know you've been told, but I want you to take a look at some of the studies so that you understand the latest studies show that even a very small, nearly insignificant amount of alcohol is still detrimental. It still increases your risk of cancer. And I don't know about you, but I certainly don't want dementia. I've done a lot of episodes specifically talking about like, how do I avoid having dementia? I don't want a soggy brain. I want a juicy brain. I want a juicy prefrontal cortex. You hear me say that all the time. Well, you ain't going to have that, Chalene Johnson, if you're drinking champagne, if you're drinking anything. So I just had to ask myself, like, what do I want more? Who am I really? You know, because if I'm putting myself out there as a health and fitness influencer, if I'm saying that like my mission is to help women realize like the second part of your life could be so badass, like you can have so much fun and you can look and feel better than you've ever felt in your entire life. Like you can actually get better, not worse. I'm sorry, I'm going to say some things that are going to offend some of you. The women who are getting worse are the women who are still drinking. And when you start drinking, when you continue drinking, studies show you just drink more and more and more. And then we find ways to rationalize it. We find ways to ignore it. We find ways to excuse it. But on average, almost everybody, without exception, like you never go like I'm drinking less unless you make a very intentional decision to almost drink nothing. And I know there's going to be some of you who are going to comment and say like, I very rarely drink. I love that. I think that's awesome. You know, if someone sent me a message today and said, you know, I don't know if I can consider myself sober, but I probably only drink like 2 or 3 times a year. And when I do, I only have a couple of glasses of wine. I'm like, to me, like, if you can do that, that's awesome. I don't think there's any problem with that. I don't think I could do that. It'd be interesting to test it out, but that also scares me. I'm just being honest because I'm new to this. By the way, I'm 5 months currently, a little over 5 months sober. And even to say sober sounds weird because that makes it sound like I was drunk before. I've gone 5 months without alcohol. Will I have a glass of champagne or indulge in a cocktail at some point? Maybe, but I know I can say with 100% certainty I'll never be a drinker again. I'll never be drinking on the regular again because I know too much. And it's like smoking. I was once a smoker too. In college, I smoked every single day, like a pack of cigarettes a day in college, and I was teaching fitness classes. But like, you know what it was for me? It was vanity. I went into a gas station. I was probably like, well, it's 2 things that made me quit smoking. Here's the first one. And they happened like very close together. The first one is I walked into a gas station and I asked for a pack of cigarettes. Marlboro Lights were my brand. And there was an older gentleman who was like about my dad's age behind me. And he said something to me. Now, I'd heard all the things about cancer, et cetera, but like, you don't worry about that. You just think you're invincible when you're young. But this man, he heard me ask for the cigarettes. I pay for them. I turned around. He goes, you know, you're way too pretty to be smoking cigarettes and doing something so dumb. And I was like, wow. I don't know why. Like he tapped into that like shallow side of me, you know? And frankly, that's what got me to take a break from drinking alcohol because we were traveling through Europe and I just noticed that my eyes were like my face looked so puffy. And I was spending so much time in the morning, like trying to like depuff my eyes and trying like to not look so old and haggard. And I'm like, is this just what is this? And then I'm realizing I'm like, you know, I kind of think it's the drinking. So let's just take 7 days off and see if I can get rid of this puff in my face. And then I'll just cut back. Because, you know, we were in Europe, so I was probably drinking more than usual. I mean, I was for sure drinking more than usual. Honestly, I'd heard some of the science, but it was vanity. It was not wanting to look old and haggard that made me take a break. So I don't know what it is going to be for you, but that was my why to start, and it very quickly changed. Very quickly, I had a much bigger why, a why that mattered more than vanity. But whatever it is for you, I want you to know it's not as hard as you think it is. It's really not. The first 7 days are pretty gnarly, especially if you don't have a plan. And that's why I want to encourage you to, look at the resources I'm going to tag below this video, below this episode. But, don't stop there. There's some phenomenal books. Annie Grace is probably my favorite author. I'm going to have an interview with her coming up here on the show soon. I freaking loved her book. And I got it on Audible, and that, I lived, that never left my earbuds. I listened to it. I was listening to Quit Lit all day long, every single day for the first 30 days. And after those first 30 days, I was like, wow, this is so much easier than I thought it was. Look at me. And I can have so much more fun now. I still look forward to dancing on tables and doing crazy things and wearing short skirts that are inappropriate for someone my age and doing all the things. But now I feel so much better. My energy is so much higher, and I know I'm going to live longer. I know that I'm doing the right thing. And most importantly, I know I'm doing the right thing by you. Because if I'm going to put myself out there and say that I care about women's health and I care about sharing information that's going to help women to live with vitality and to be their best and to look their best and to feel their best, then I'm being a total freaking hypocrite if I'm also drinking. Because you're looking at me and going whatever it is you're doing, you've done your research, and so therefore, Chalene, I don't have to do mine. I trust you. Well, thank you for your trust. And I can't thank you enough for forgiving me for not really looking at alcohol, for intentionally being ignorant. That's what it was. It was intentional ignorance because I didn't want to hear the truth, because I didn't think I had a problem, and I didn't necessarily have a problem, but alcohol is a problem. As Dr. Amen says, I loved something, which is true. I loved champagne, but champagne didn't love me back. I'm sure you've had this experience where you're at a party or you're someplace where you see somebody light up a cigarette and you look at them like, oh my God, do people actually still do that? But if you're my age, you realize it wasn't too long ago when everyone did that. But the judgment is so strong now because we know how bad it is for you. And a large group of us are in the know, and we know how bad alcohol is for all of us. Now, do I think less of a person who smokes? No, I feel bad for them. Do I think less of people who drink alcohol? No, I'm not that far removed, but I do find myself thinking, man, we've got to change this, and it's changing. The tide is shifting. There's going to come a day in the very near future where people are going to look at that person who's having their second vodka martini and think to themselves we're still doing that? People are still drinking? Listen to the Gen Zs and the millennials. They're not into alcohol. They know that there's so many other incredible ways to relax and have fun, and they're experimenting with other ways of altering their mood and just enjoying life and being present without putting toxins and poisons in their body. So why not join the health conscious cool kids and take a break from alcohol and just see what happens? See if your fear of missing it is exactly what you think it is, or if it's just something you've made much bigger in your own head. It's easier than you think, especially if you have support. There is a cultural shift that is making this so much easier than what it was even 3 to 5 years ago. So whether it's Sober October or Dry January, or you just decide today's the day I want to take a break, I want you to know I support you. Drop a comment below and let us know that today is your day one, or whatever day this is for you. You will not find a more supportive, uplifting community than the community that forms around those who are okay, I need some support. I want to do this. Whether it's on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, people are so supportive. Thanks for watching.